Let's learn about Redux in React.js. React Redux is an official data binding for the data in React. It allows React components to read the data from the Redux store and dispatch actions to the store to update the data. So, React is a JavaScript library that helps us to divide our application into multiple components, but that doesn't clearly specify how to keep track of the data and how to deal with all the events properly. That is, to maintain the state and actions properly. Hence, Redux, it's been a complementary library to React that provides a way to easily keep the data and events, that is, the state and actions, in track. Essentially, Redux allows us to build React application as you are, but delegate all the state and actions to the Redux. So how come it was a difference from MVC, that is the traditional model, and what is the advantage of over using the Redux? So the problem with the traditional MVC architecture is it's losing control of your data flow. In general, the data flow is bidirectional, that is two-way data binding in MVC. That is, the user inputs in one component can affect other components and it's vice versa. So when a user action is triggered to the view, it's being triggered to the controller, and which updates the model, and then the model notifies back to the controller, which takes the impact to the view, and it's a two-way cyclic process. But by using Redux, we are solving this problem by introducing a central data store in our application. So this enhances the efficiency to maintain the state and keep a track on the data and the actions. Redux was implemented and inspired by Flux. So Redux studied the Flux architecture and omitted unnecessary complexities. So Flux is a pattern which is implemented using the Redux architecture. Comparatively, Redux does not have departure concept at all. Dispatcher is not there in Redux. It has only store, whereas Flux has many stores, but you can find only one store as a central hub in the Redux. The action objects will be received and handled by the store directly. Here you can take a look. It is a simple Redux cycle. Let me explain. Action creator. It's a function that creates an action. Action. It's an object that contains information about how we want to change some data within our central state. For example, it will look like action. For example, it will look like action with the two required parameters, type and payload. So type describes what change we want to make to our final data. Payload is context of what change we want to make. Now it gets fed to the dispatch. So it's a function that takes in the action, it makes copies of that action and sends them to the reducer. So here copies of the action are being created and then it forwards that action to the reducer. So the reducer, it's also a function that takes in the action and some existing data is being dealt here. The changes the data according to the type and payload of the action and then sends the updated date to the state. So it's been created newly, which is the changes is being taken care, and newly created, that is the updated state or the action, is being passed to the state. So state, an object that serves as a central hub here. So state, it's an object that serves as a central hub here. So it's like a central repository of all data from the reducers. So within this React Redux structure, we use some components and functions to tie React and Redux together, that is store, provider and connect. Store, this contains the consolidated reducers and the state. Provider, it's a component that has a reference to the store and provides the data from the store to that component which it wraps. And then connect. So connect is a function that communicates with the provider. Whatever component we wrap with the connect, that component will be able to get the changes in the store state from the provider. So we can configure connect to just the part of the data we want from the provider. So the connect passes this down as props into wrapped components. So the flow looks like, first we create the provider, and then pass this, and then pass this its reference to the Redux store. So this wrap any component that needs to interact with the store with the connect, and then this connect passes down the different pieces of the state and any action creators we need as props down to the wrapped component. So this is dealt to connect, so which passes down into pieces of state. So to a quick recap, so the main thing would be reducers, then the store and action. To have a quick recap, it's a store where it's a place where entire state of the application is list. So it manages state of the application and adds a action function. It's like a brain that is responsible for all moving parts in the Redux. So action is sent or dispatched from the view, which are payloads that can be read by the reducers. So it's a pure object created to store the information of the user's event. It also includes informations such as type of the action, time of occurrence, location of the occurrence, its coordinates, and all these which state it aims to change. And then finally, the another important parameter here, it is reducer, which reads the payloads from the action and then updates the store through the state accordingly. So it's a pure function to return a new state from the initial state. And thus, through this implementation of React Redux, many performance optimizations internally is happening, which allows components to re-render and encourages towards a good React architecture. You will have a very good, better understanding when I illustrate you with a good example in the next session.